dance for joy your last alright.
Welcome to not very sensible second-hand classics and this very unusual Christmas special. This is a 1996 Daihatsu Sportrak. It's really not the kind of thing we'd normally ever feature on the channel, but here we are, and it's just extraordinary. Is it any good? Should you care? Let's find out, shall we? So the Sportrak or Feroza or Rocky or whatever that it was called, in various countries, was introduced in 1989. It's actually introduced in some places a little bit earlier than that, but it continued in this country until 1998 when it was discontinued. Daihatsu had a very sort of peculiar range of cars at the time. They had doing the little charade, they just had sort of a domino in the 1980s, and the applause, which was a hatchback and a saloon at the same time, and then they had the big old Sportrak and then this smaller Sportrak. Still at the time, Daihatsu would have been hampered by Japanese import quotas and gentlemen's agreements, and so even if they really wanted to sell more of these in this country, they wouldn't have been allowed to. But I certainly haven't seen one of these for a very long time. You could get a softback version of one of these. This is the sort of hardback version. I'm told by Chris, who owns this car, that actually these are really rare, and there's a really small number of these left. Let alone ones that are standard. I've never seen a standard one of these for a long time. Bizarrely, there was a version of this car marketed in places like Italy and France called the Bertone Free Climber, and that was a car with a sort of comprehensive facelift on it as well, made by Bertone in Italy to get around the import quotas, and also with a 2-litre BMW engine, I think. I've never seen one of those, just seen some photographs of them, but the Sportrak is something of a rarity. This one's been extensively modified for competition use, got winches, massive wheels. The engine's actually got a sort of different manifold on it, although I doubt that that's really given us much more than the 94 horsepower that's quoted for the output of this fuel-injected version of the Daihatsu engine. There were two different engines available in the Sportrak in this country. One was one of the earlier models, the carburettor ones, which only lasted about a year, and that was 84 horsepower. This later fuel injected version, this one does have a cactus in 1996, put out 94 horsepower. So they're not the fastest, but it does seem to be pulling sort of okay. If you think about the sort of person who would have bought one of these, who maybe was kind of more interested in sort of off-road ability and things like that, then actually the amount of power that it has is perfectly adequate. It's absolutely fine. Unfortunately today there's just not really much of an opportunity to kind of go anywhere off-road. We're not in an area to be able to do that, but we're definitely not going to get any motorways on this, because the height of the suspension and the size of the wheels means that really that's not good anyway. So we're sort of bouncing around. It feels very much like an old-fashioned off-roader with this separate low-range four-wheel drive selector. You could get, these looking wheel hubs and things like that on one of these. And this car's actually been to Russia for some reason. That's why it's got Russian right on the outside of it, and it took part in some competition over there. Well, yes, it's not the sort of thing we normally have on the channel, but then again, it's a special time of year. The Sportrak is not a car that you see these days at all. You just don't see them around. And there are a couple of reasons for that. One of them you can sort of imagine. It's a 1990s Japanese 4x4, and so most of them have just rusted away. Second thing is, we didn't sell an awful lot of them over here. The 4Traks tended to be more common than these. I'm not exactly sure why. I think it might be just they were just more suitable for sort of farming duties, things like that. A lot of these were sold for proper sort of hardcore 4x4 enthusiasts. People actually needed it. Less really with the Daihatsu's a sort of lifestyle thing, although things like the Vitara and then later the Toyota RAV4 were becoming sort of popular, but this is a proper kind of full 4x4 with low range gears and things like that. This one's extensively modified, so you can see we've got a little bar there helping me get in. This is the F300 model. The F310s were a little bit wider, and this is the base model F300 from the time. It's a 96. I'm going to have to sort of get in carefully here. Hold on a second, viewers. The door's going to slam on me if I'm not careful. There we are, we're in. So very, very basic in here, actually. In terms of the main dash, we've got a rev counter, but that's really about it. This has only got 84,000 miles on the clock, and there's no kind of indication. The indication that you're in sort of high and low range is down here with this completely separate sort of old-fashioned selector for the four-wheel drive system. 4 high, 2 high, 4 low. Aftermarket Sony stereo. Also, we've got some, I think, what are factory gauges in here. We've got additional ones as well. With this being so high up and then being lifted again, that's probably a good idea to have that. And actually, at the moment, because of the camber of this road, the car's actually over to the left a little bit. These controls this little winch. Got sat nav on here. Momo steering wheel, which is interesting. The wipers are actually on the left and the indicators on the right, which is older Japanese style. Very kind of 1980s dashboard, and in this country these cars came out in 89, so that makes sense, and they were discontinued a few years before they were in some other places in about 1998. Let's have a look at the glove box. Ooh, I've got some little treats for little friends in there. We won't ever see commission officers in there. There we go, it's better. I could put them on there, I suppose, with a grab handle. It shows the sort of person that Daihatsu was sort of aiming these cars at, but you've got a proper grab handle up there. It's not somebody who just sort of poses around in it. It's somebody who actually probably wants to take these to competitions or there's a farm or something. We've actually got a sunroof in here, which I'm not going to open. These XI models actually didn't come with rear seats as standard. These seats are actually off as a Suzuki Swift GTI for some reason. Not the original seats at all, which is fascinating. I think I'm going to have to get in the back, though, viewers. Mr. Manning from Matty's Cars channel will not let me get away with that. He lives quite near to where we are today, actually. Just have a look at the door pockets, they're really tiny. So somehow we're going to have to get in the back. I've just realised the fuel flap is kind of down there. I'm going to have to ask, actually, the owner what that one does, because I can't really see if it does anything at all. Yeah. Okay, let's see if we can get in the back, shall we? Right, I don't think we're going through that gap, viewers. That's impossible. Let's try the other door. Okay, viewers. Let's see if we can actually get in. This is going to be... Whoop, it's going to be fun. Hold on a second, viewers. I think even that is going to be a bit challenging. Let's try going in through the boot. That might be a bit easier. No, it's not. We've actually got a rear winch on this car as well as a front one. Boot is really small, actually. I think these are the original seats for it. Let's just show what it is rather than actually use them. I mean, I'm not 10 years old anymore, viewers. I think days of sort of climbing over stuff probably over for me. Right, there's actually 2 individual seats in here. We've got these kind of panels at the back showing all these speakers and things, and we've got a full roll cage on this, which you probably need if you're going on these competitions and you're going to be sort of ploughing through acres of mud. Also got a CB radio in here. It just gets better and better. There's all these sort of different modifications that have been made to this car over the course of many, many years by the various people who've had it, such as that. Right, I think what we're going to do is we're going to have a look under the bonnet, which I think is actually quite standard under there. Apologies for the wind noise, viewers, there's not an awful lot I can do about it. As you can see, the name that this car carried in many parts of the world is the Feroza, although it's known as the Sportrak over here. You can see they've even added a little letter for that because it's a UK market car. This is the Daihatsu H engine. It's a fuel injected unit actually. There was a carb unit earlier on the Sportrak's life, but this is the fuel injected version with a cat, developing about 94 horsepower. It's 1.6 litres in capacity. Can't remember offhand if this is a Campbell or a chain engine. It's funny with Daihatsu and their relationship with Toyota, because you would have thought they'd, by this stage, with Toyota the majority owner and having been for several years, that they would just put a Toyota engine in this. But no, this is Daihatsu's own unit, I think, although perhaps Toyota developed with it, but it's known as the Daihatsu H engine. And there it is. Obviously we've been going to lots of off-road competitions, we've got these big spot lamps and this entire kind of tubular frame around the car just to sort of protect it. It is something absolutely extraordinary, and not something we normally would show on the channel, but I think it's quite interesting really. Right, I think we will go out for another drive, if my nerves can stand it. It was in a storage for a number of years. It's recently been sort of recommissioned and resurrected. And yeah, it's not the sort of thing you really want to go around town. It was steering to sort of wants to wander all over the place. You can feel everything sort of moving around, which is just the way that these old off-roaders are. I like the compact size of this car, and the fact that actually it's a bit wider than the Suzuki Jimny. Those are really narrow inside. Chris has had several of those, and of course I drove one of those back in 2019 on the first ever episode of No Budget Reviews, which I did enjoy, although again, rather like this one, you don't really want to take it at any speed. It's not really designed for that. I think I've read somewhere that these do 0 to 60 in like 14 seconds or something like that, and it's not really what it's about anyway, so you know, we'll just stick to what this is good at, which is kind of looking unusual. I mean, you can get some looks driving around in something like this, and also being completely unstoppable. There's evidence everywhere around this car of the sort of the life it's had. I mean, pictured in magazines and things like that. And I imagine if it really came to it, that you could probably get anywhere. If it snowed or something like that, flooded, you'd be alright in this. So viewers from a very windy Port Sunlight, let's have a look at some trim levels for the Daihatsu Sportrak. When the car was launched in 1989 in this country, there were two trim levels, the DX and the EL. The DX, I think, was the softback version. This is the hardback, which I think is the most common one now. They only lasted for a year with the carburettor engine before they were replaced in 1990 with a trim just called the EFI. In 1991, they were replaced again with two trims, the STI and the ELI, and those lasted until the car had a minor facelift in 1993, which I think is where you got the Daihatsu badge on the grille of this one from. From 93 until 1998, there were four trims: the XI, which is this base model, XI SE, EXI and ELXI. The ELXI was interesting because not only did it come with things like electric windows and stuff like that, which this car doesn't have, but also it was the F310 model, slightly wider one that has wider arches. This have the arches hacked around so much that you wouldn't even know what was original to the car. But also this base model, like most of the others in this country, were the F300s. So viewers, should you consider a Daihatsu Sportrak as a not very sensible second-hand classic? Well, it's really a moot point. I mean, one of the reasons we're doing this as Christmas is because we wouldn't normally have a car like this on the channel. They are very, very rare, and even this one probably is going to need some kind of fettling at the moment to keep it on the road. Like the rust on these is pretty bad, but there's nothing else quite like this. In some ways, the Suzuki Jimny sort of replaced this. It came out the same year in this country, but these actually were discontinued, and they have a similar sort of feel about them, and I think a similar sort of community. But I'm very privileged to have had the chance to have had a go in this. It's something a bit different. Anyway, thank you ever so much indeed once again for watching. Please don't forget to subscribe to the channel, like this video, comment below, and Merry Christmas, and we shall see you again very soon.